Got a meathead mobility, Kelly Starrett, hanging out with him, and we're talking throwers and mobility that is going to work better for you. So one of the things about creating power is creating torque. You know, I don't care if that's discus or that's going to be hammer, or the Highland Games, or the stone. It's about being able to put the hips in front of the hands so that you can apply force. And so we're going to talk about a couple different moves to help find some of that separation from the hips to the upper body.
And when we're yeah, right. That's all. Easy. If your hips just do what they were supposed to do,
easy.
It's no problem. In fact, you wouldn't even need a coach. The coach would be like, do this, and you can do it.
The hips are the lead handle of the whip, man.
TM. I don't know. Did you make that up?
No.
I'm going to give you credit for that.
I'll take it.
And then it's on. All right, the lead handle. Okay, so look, the primary engine, what's interesting to think is when we watch people squat, big, strong guys, the first thing that happens is that foot goes away from the center line, right? And so everything we're doing suddenly is in this position, but this is not the position where I'm in. And if I look at where I need to land and turn, my center of mass is over that foot,
right? And
look at how far the foot is across the midline.
Yep.
So what's happening is, if lay on your back for me, if we break this down
from a fundamental standpoint,
and just simplify this, one of the things that we're looking at is how well the knee abducts, right? How much the hip comes across. Because if you can't dissociate and have this motion across, then yeah, I know you're strong out here, but you can't translate it because you can't
push that
knee in, because and then you're going to start to twist and compensate around it, because you're going to have to, right? The second thing is, we know that when you start to rise up, and notice how I'm able to push him and his butt is coming up off the ground, I would like this knee to come to center before I start to see this hip come off the ground, right? Which means that the hip starts to become a little bit proud in the socket, and we start to lose its rotational capacity. Now that's fine when you're deadlifting,
right?
But it seems to me, especially when you want to try to win the world championship, you're spinning.
I'm definitely spinning.
How many people are not spinning on implements these days? I'm talking about like the shop putters.
3/4 of a spin.
Yeah, it's a lot of spinning.
Yeah, I'm not 6'7" and Polish, so gliding's not going to be the best for me.
Hey, weird, right?
Yeah.
And the discus, the glide is out.
No, you can't do it.
You can't like glide
No,
the
you gotta
discus.
spin.
You got to spin. So what we're seeing is, when I add a rotational component to this, then when I lose the ability to rotate, I'm going to see a kink in the rest of the system, right? So one of the things that we're looking at is how much internal rotation and external rotation does an athlete have. This is Matt Vincent's total hip window, and you can see it's
just about 1,000.
Right, it's 1,000 millimeters of no rotation. But what we're looking at is total hip rotation and what happens to that rotation in abduction. And you see how the window gets smaller into that position. So as a physio, one of the things I'm looking at is that when I mobilize Matt's hips, I'm coming straight down, right, with some distraction laterally, and then I'm trying to keep the hip in the socket, bring the knee across the chest, and add the rotation there. So that's the official sort of mobilization when we do what we call a hip quadrant, right?
Gotcha.
What we've tried to do with our techniques is say, hey, how do we take the physio out of that so you can work on this daily, right? There's no substitution for 235-pound physio to lay on your hip on the table and distract. You felt that.
Yeah, that's very true.
You felt the glory.
Yeah.
Right, so what we need to do then is understand the translation. So this is our setup here. And what we'll do is get a big band distraction so that you can understand what we're attempting to do. And the inter-rotation piece of that is really misunderstood. So look, suddenly I've taken a flex leg, but when I push across, do you see where the knee is now? It's over the center line, right? Which is like me winding up and rotating. Can you kind of see it in your head?
Yep.
Right? Then I can keep the knee positioned in the back of the socket, or the femur in the back of the socket, driving the force there through my weight. I can also push in a little bit further, so I can get in a good wound up position and start rising up early, because that's one of the reasons guys are high, right? Don't miss that. But then I can start adding the rotation by pushing the foot back and forth and then twist around. So we feel like this missing internal rotation piece is you literally winding up with that knee, and you can see that it's the same position you just showed me with obviously just my left leg. So loading up, adding rotation, twisting around, and then I can just oscillate in and out of that position, contract, relax, and I'm basically taking myself into the close approximation of adjusting the joint, which is being able to be here and land with my feet under. That's the same position I was just in. And what we see is that athletes are going to buy themselves slack.
They absolutely do, yeah.
Land open.
And from there, they'll just try to lift here, and you don't extend the hip. You just lift instead of,
because that's the only thing you can. That's the only thing you can do.
And pushing it around.
That's right. So, from an athlete who's throwing, you know, obviously you're going to need full excursion through the tissues. I think in throwing we call this the reverse C.
Be the reverse C.
It's like I'm a
power
thrower.
position.
It's like I'm a thrower.
Nice.
It's so weird. But if we don't have that rotational mechanics and can't dissociate, when you land, you're not going to be able to get that leg underneath you, and you're certainly not going to be able to twist and open it up. And what you'll see is that guys will be, not only do they push, but they're really late.
Right.
So you see them spin, first spin looks good, second spin you're like, whoa, 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 your timing's off. No number of timing drills will ever fix the problem of bad mechanics at the primary handle of the whip.
That's it. And so it's, you know, it's that being able to get more force here and more time to push through, get more extension, can lead to more power coming through the final with at the end of the whip, where your hand will be.
And this is one of those things that I feel like you should bring a band with you, attach it to the track.
It's easy.
Open up your hips before you do it, touch it afterwards. You should obsess about this mobilization because of look at how exaggerated this position is.
Right.
It is this position. You know, all I'm doing with you is flexing the knee up, right? So, but making sure that I'm not reversing early from lack of hip rotation or hip flexion, and then I've got that rotation and the ability to bring the leg over. Now check this out. When we throw Matt on the slack line, right, what's interesting about the slack line, go ahead and stand up on that for us, is that suddenly I'm asking, look what he did. I know he's balancing, but where's his leg going? His leg is going to where he suddenly has more room, which is this shape, right?
Yeah.
You see that? And what we're doing on the slack line is I'm forcing him to end up with that foot underneath his center of mass and center of balance and into that scissor position. So as a mess around before, all I'm just having Matt do is, I want you to reach around and touch, come back and touch, and you could do this as some plie lunges, but just it's more fun like this, right?
Yeah, it's way more fun.
It's way more fun on a slack line. But all he's doing is forcing his nervous system to be competent with the foot underneath the line, and that is being able to bring that hip and have that excursion so that you can translate underneath and still throw, right?
That's it.
So what we see is as people walk, they're like, whoa, right, side to side.
Walking around.
Which is a dead giveaway that you're missing the ability to adduct, to bring the knee across, to adduct. And if I said abduct before, I meant to say adduct.
Either way. Listen to the big message, not tiny stuff. So that's it. You know, type of stuff like that's going to really make a difference in, you know, a little pre-warm-up, getting the body, remembering some mechanics, some simple movement patterns individually that you're all going to tie together when it actually comes time to throw. You know, it's big picture stuff for the throw, but work on the individual stuff to build the small strength, build the mobility, build some range of motion. You can throw further.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Do you think you could squash me like a waddle if I had to?
Throw that 100-pound kettlebell at you.